Now, let's drill a well out here. We're going to come in here, we're going to drill a well. We got our house over here and we want to drill a well. We drill down into this shallow aquifer. And we hit water, and so we stop. Now what's going to happen is that water is going to stand in this well right here. So this well is full of water up to that point. We put our pump in there, and we have to lift water up to irrigate or supply our house with water up to a certain level. So we put our little pump in the well, bring it up out of ground, and we get water. But we have to lift the water to do that. We have to lift it from here up to here. Now, this guy over here decides he's going to drill a well, but he doesn't like this shallow water. He's a little concerned about the quality of it. So he drills right through it, and he keeps going down. And he hits this lower aquifer. What happens? He's sealed off this with casing all the way down. He's not using any of that water. He went through this rock layer and he tapped into this lower water level. All of a sudden, what happened? When he broke through, out she comes. We got an artesian well because the hydraulic gradient was right here. This was the water table of that particular layer that he hit. That water table hydraulically stretches across this valley, and his well comes out below the hydraulic gradient, so the water's going to free flow out of his well. So he just found himself an artesian. Anyhow, we're going to get an artesian well because the hydraulic gradient is greater than the height that we have to lift it out of the well. And as long as our water table stays this high, we're always going to get flow. And in fact, we're going to get free flow of water until the water table would drop down to that level. And you hear about artesian wells all the time, and there's quite a few in this valley actually. And it's simply because we do have a lot of hydraulic gradient coming down off of the mountains very close to us, and there are various layers of basalt built into those geological formations underground. So we have lots of this diagonal layering of basalts, and you get a zone where you're being fed between two of these diagonal layers that's fractured, and you get a zone of water that gets put under hydraulic pressure as it starts to fill up this pervious layer in here. It builds the water table back up into the headwaters where it's gathering. And until it's tapped by a well, it sits there and holds its pressure. Now what happens is, after this guy finds out that can happen, then all of his neighbors decide they want to do the same thing, and then they start using the water faster than it recharges up here with precipitation coming into the zone that's filling that particular part of that particular underground aquifer. And if it's being taken out faster than it's entering, we get a drop in the water table. Now, when they first started drilling wells in this valley, most of the wells in the city were artesian. Now there's just a handful. And there were some that had such strong pressure, many wells in the area never needed a pump. The pressure was so great, they just had to cap it off, and they already had enough pressure. They didn't even have to put a pump on it. Just from the hydraulic head pushing down from up in the mountains due to the elevation difference of where the water was standing in its water table versus where it was being tapped. Grew up on Mill Creek. I happen to have a neighbor that has an artesian well up there. And they've never had to use a pump. And nobody else can drill a well around him. He owns all the ground within a mile or so in all directions. So he's pretty immune to having any major changes in his water table in that area because there's nobody interfering with it. And so he's in a pretty good shape, and shoot, he's never had to put a pump on his operation. All he does is water his house and his lawn, but it's awful handy to have a water supply that you don't need any pump to pressurize. It's already there, pre-pressured. But that can happen. So we can have the artesian effect. I like the very bottom one here.
That's the one.
That's my pick, I think.
That's the one.